Hey, welcome back to the National Defense. It's Randy Miller. And you know, we don't get very political on this show very often, but I do love it when somebody from our military runs for office. I mean, it takes a lot. I can't even imagine. But especially, you know, we're based here in Kansas City, Missouri, and somebody's running with a military background for Senate in the state of Missouri. And he's a lieutenant colonel. His name is Lucas Kunce, and he's here at the table with us at the National Defense. Lieutenant Colonel, how are you?
Good, Randy. What's happening, man? It's exciting to be here. I only had to drive like 15 minutes.
Are you a crazy Marine, too? Listen,
we're all crazy, brother.
I know.
Yeah.
I got a buddy of mine named John White that lives down the street from me, and he's a Marine. And that guy has done... he should be dead. I mean, the crap that he has gone through and pulled, man. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's a miracle any of us are still standing here.
It really is. Hey, thank you for coming by. This is great. Great to talk to you. I've seen all the, I think all the TV commercials that you've done. Mm-hmm. You're running against a guy, incumbent Josh Hawley. And I loved it at the state fair. You went to the Missouri State Fair, and I guess, did he come over to you first, or how did that work?
Well, you know, last year, I'd actually, this is Randy's talking about the first time that I ever met the guy I'm running against. Yeah. And so, you know, last year I was at the state fair, I tried to go up to meet him, and, you know, kind of skittered off on me and didn't get to say hi. But, you know, I guess he spent the interim year rereading some chapters of his book on manhood, and this year it was just the weirdest thing. It was like a WWE event,
right.
Yeah. So he runs up to me, all mic'd up, camera crew following him, cutest little like Midwestern themed outfit with pearl snaps you've ever seen, and just yeah, it was not what you expect from politics. You know, I'm used to being a Marine. I was stationed at the Pentagon for 4 years, everything professional. And it was a little eye-opening for, you know, kind of the stunts that some of these politicians are willing to do when we should all just be serving our country.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you called him weird, which, you know, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. He said some very weird things that I've heard, and it's now is that a term that Democrats are using now? Because somebody else told me that.
It seems like they might be. You know, I did mention it a couple years ago, just when he did something, but you know, I'm not tracking what everybody's doing nationally.
You know what? Weird is weird.
Yeah.
Right. Andy, you got a song?
Good golly, Josh Hawley, why are you so weird? Good golly, Josh Hawley, you should disappear. When we give the job to Lucas, all Missouri's gonna cheer. Ow! Good golly, Josh Hawley.
That's hot, Randy.
Yeah, you sound like a nut. Good golly, Josh Hawley, the door will be shut. You can get back to your regular job, always kissing butt.
Anyway, number one on the charts, number one in your hearts. You can have that, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Thank you, man. That's the coolest thing that's going to happen today, I think.
So now you grew up in Independence, Missouri?
I actually grew up in mid-Missouri. So I was born...
Oh, that's okay. Right.
Yeah, I was born in a little town called Hartsburg on the Missouri River, and then went to Jeff City High School and grew up there.
Okay. And what led you to the military?
For people who don't know my background, it's probably everybody out there. You know, I'm like your typical mid-Missouri story. My parents were 19 and 22 years old when they got married.
Right.
And they were Catholic. I don't know, you know any Catholics, Randy?
Few.
Well, you know what happens when they follow the rules, right?
Right.
Yeah. Kid.
Right.
And the paycheck-to-paycheck lifestyle that comes along with that.
Yeah.
And you know, my parents stopped at 4 kids because my littlest sister had a heart condition. My family went bankrupt from those medical bills, and you know, just really hard time. But the people in our community who had no more money than we did, they passed the plate at church for us, like brought more food by the house than we could eat, and really just took care of us. And so, you know, I always wanted to pay them back, and I thought being a Marine would be the best way. And if you have a second for a story, I'll tell you why I became a Marine rather than anything else.
Well, I was just going to ask you why you picked Marine.
Well, you're not the first person that asked me that. It's funny because I was at this firefighters event the other day. The firefighters in the state have endorsed me, and this old-time Army guy comes up to me. He's like, you know, my grandson, he wants to be in the military. He's like, my son didn't want to do it. sometimes genius skips a generation, you know, is what the guy said to me. I was like, yeah, I guess so, man. And he's like, so he comes and asks me, he's like, what service do you want to be in? And he's like, you know, I was in the Army in Vietnam. So I was like, dude, you got to join the Air Force, man. You got to do this right. And his son's like, yeah, but Grandpa, I want to be hard like you. And he's like, I don't know that you know what you're talking about, but like, you know, you can try the Navy, maybe the Army if you're really feeling stupid, but whatever you do, do not become a U.S. Marine. And so then the guy's like, why did you become a Marine of all things? And so, you know, I mentioned that our parents and my parents went bankrupt and we went through some hard times.
Right.
And, you know, when we were growing up, though, they always wanted us kids and the family to do whatever we could to just serve the community, no matter what our means were.
Sure.
And so one of the things we did down at our church parish was there was like a monthly soup kitchen, you know, meal where anybody could come and eat. And so my parents would take me and my oldest sister there when we were kids, and there was this guy named Al who worked in the kitchen. And so Al kind of ran things, and when we'd go in, you know, he'd get all the kids together, and he'd be like, "All right, kids, what chores do you guys want to do?" And so you could set the tables, you could hand out food, you could clear the tables, you could greet people, you could do the dishes, all that sort of stuff. And so every time he asked me and my sister, we were like, ooh, we want to do the dishes. We want to do the dishes. And Al's like, what the hell's wrong with these two kids? Like, right? Like, who wants to do the dishes? But what Al didn't know was like, with a big family back home, you know, doing the dishes was 45 minutes of hard labor at the sink, right?
Yeah.
Like when mom's not doing the dishes, she's not as worried about what sticks to the pots and pans. And so, you know, we're grinding at the sink, and then, you know, we got to rinse everything, hand dry it with the towels, put it away. And they had these magical things at the church kitchen called dishwashing machines. And so we thought we were just scamming this old man. We take the dishes, we just throw them in there and walk away. Like, oh, Al's so stupid. He thinks we're doing chores here. And like, we just toss these things into a machine.
That's funny.
And so several years later, after the kitchen, like the dinners had ended actually, we get a knock at the door in the summer. And, you know, back before, like, iPads and stuff, a knock at the door was pretty exciting, right? Like, my kids don't even look up nowadays, but, like, we were like, oh, who's at the door? So we all run to the door. My mom goes there, and Al was standing on the porch with this, like, mischievous look in his eyes. And he's like, come here, kids. I got to show you something. So he's got his big blue pickup truck parked out front. We all run down the sidewalk. He throws down the tailgate gate, and he's like, look at that. Do you know what that is up in there? And we look up, and sure enough, there's a dishwashing machine.
Oh, wow.
In the back of his pickup truck. And so, you know, it'd been years, but he had renovated his kitchen, and when they pulled out the old dishwasher, you know, he remembered those kids who didn't have a dishwashing machine. He put his old one in his truck, brought it by our house, called up one of his buddies, and they installed it for us.
Oh, wow.
And,
wow.
You know, Al was a Marine veteran in Vietnam, and you know, he used to take me down to the Marine Corps League as a kid, and I would hang out with these guys who, you know, none of them had chosen to serve. They were all drafted.
Right.
You know, they'd talk about watching their best friends die. They'd talk about coming home and being treated like trash.
Right.
And all of them were going through really tough things that many of us go through. And you know, despite that, these were the guys who took care of their community no matter what, right? Whatever they were going through in their heads, whatever they'd been through emotionally, however badly they felt their country had treated them, and many of them did, like, they still were the people in our community, just like Al, who took care of all of us no matter what, not seeking glory, not for any honor or anything, but just because it was the right thing to do. And so, you know, those guys were my heroes, man.
You thought Marines, it's got to be Marines.
That's right. It's got to be Marines. These are the guys. And also, I mean, you never forget the guy who saves you 45 minutes of hard labor at the sink every night.
Exactly,
So, I mean, in that case, I got to be a Marine, right?
Well, you know, so you bring that up, and it always astonishes me to see men and women who've served the country come back and still continue to serve. You know, one of our favorite organizations is Team Rubicon, and, you know, these are all folks that have served that now, you know, run into disaster areas and crisis situations and continue to serve. And I guess it's just that heart for service that's there, which is probably why you felt compelled to run for office, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a set of values. And, you know, for me, I really thought being a Marine was the best way to serve and protect my neighborhood. And I did 13 years on active duty.
Oh, wow.
I led a police training team in Iraq, 12 Marines, Navy corpsmen up and down the roads of Fallujah, Habaniyah, Ramadi. My job was to bring everybody home safe, which thank God we did. And,
Wow.
and then I learned Pashto. I deployed to Afghanistan twice on task forces. And the only reason that after 13 years I transitioned to the reserves, because people are like, why did you get out? I'm like, no, man, I'm a normal guy. I got no money. Like, I need that TRICARE. I'm going to need that retirement.
That's right.
Like,
Oh, yeah, I get that too.
Yeah,
Wow.
like,
And
I actually use the VA for my health care, but the family uses TRICARE. And so, it's just that was the way I thought I would protect and serve everyone. But really just, I watched our country light a lot of money on fire, nation building overseas, while that beautiful neighborhood I grew up in, guys like the guy I'm running against literally waged war on the people that lived there. And if you go back there right now, it shows. I mean, they outsourced all our jobs. They took away overtime pay. They never invested in America, didn't want to put Missouri first in anything. And if you go back to my old neighborhood, just a slice of Americana a few years ago, right? Like the first house I lived in is an empty lot now. The one that everybody brought food by, that I signed my Marine Corps papers out of, my home of record, is boarded up to keep the squatters out.
Oh.
The little store on the corner where when I was 8, my sister was 6, we would walk to, by ourselves to buy candy, or my mom had this little 10-cent Mountain Dew refill cup that we'd fill to the brim, and it was always half full when we got home.
Right.
We would go up there by ourselves in just the safest place ever. That store was shut down because it was robbed so many times it couldn't get insurance.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, that's their Missouri. That's not my Missouri. And so for me, it's just when I see that Josh Hawley, for example, refuses to bring money back to our state, and this isn't Democrat or Republican. Like our previous Republican, Roy Blunt, he brought $350 million a year back to the state. Josh Hawley brings zero back, and it shows in communities like I grew up in. So I was just like, you know what? The way to protect and serve that neighborhood is by winning that seat, winning this seat, and bringing money back home again. That's just it. Like, we just want to be invested in so we can make our own decisions.
Sure.
And we can make our own decisions, man. We take care of each other. Like, we can do the right thing. We just want investment, not people deciding how we get to live or controlling us or telling us what to do.
Lieutenant Colonel Lucas Kunce is with us here in the National Defense. And I'm sure you know a woman by the name of Claire McCaskill.
Of course.
So Claire,
previous senator from Missouri.
I have known Claire forever. And when I was doing a morning show at Q104, she hates when I tell this story, but I'm going to tell the story. She was married to her first husband at the time. And this guy was arrested on the top deck of the Argosy Casino, flicking a joint off the top of the Argosy. She was the Jackson County prosecutor at the time.
Oh, what a fun position to be in. Huh?
And so we did a parody song, to Smoke on the Water, and somebody ran in and said, Claire McCaskill's on the phone, wants to talk to you. And I said, I don't know if that's a good idea. She's a Jackson County prosecutor, and we just did the parody. She thought it was hysterical. And she and I have been friends ever since. And for how Josh Hawley could win an election against her, I still don't understand it. But I'm so excited for you to kind of take that mantle back, because just of everything you said and your values and we don't get to know a lot of things. The public doesn't get to know a lot of things that go on, and behind closed doors and the back alleys and everything else. But I can just, the proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah, and just if we're going to talk about Josh Hawley, in 2018, he only won with 51% of the vote. He was your classic country club Republican, backed by former Senator Jack Danforth, Republican, very well esteemed, funded by corporate PACs and all the normal people.
Right.
And the man has shown us what he really is, right?
Yeah.
He's making $500,000 in book deals while refusing to bring money back to the state. He's attacked overtime workers. He's a right-to-work guy, anti-union. He believes that we shouldn't have access to no-fault divorces, contraception, in vitro fertilization, like no exceptions for rape and incest, even on abortion bans. He signed a national one. It's like, again, it just comes back. I mean, you spoke about weed a minute ago, like, Missourians just want to make their own decisions and live their own lives,
Sure.
right? That's why we legalized weed. It's like, which of course he says still maintains is a gateway drug and should be criminalized. Like he will not support.
Gateway to what?
Well, I'm telling
Gateway to happiness.
we all know what the guy is right now,
Yeah.
and it's just and he only cares about making money for himself and doesn't care about Missouri, and it's just that's why we need people with a real record of service. And one of the things that I wanted to say today is that I think it's important to many of us in this sort of arena and who we're talking to is, I mentioned I use the VA for healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Our Missouri congressional delegation doesn't have a single veteran. No members of Congress, no senators.
I want to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's a wild spot to be in. We used to send both Democrat and Republican members of Congress, veterans to Congress all the time. People were able to work together. They were able to work for America rather than themselves because they do have that sort of feeling of service that you mentioned before, and that's their life goal. It's not about enrichment or fame or anything else.
Yeah.
And it really shows that we don't have that. We don't have anyone who understands the VA. And
yeah, of course,
we need that. We need that. So.
Well, and it's interesting too, Luke. So you talk about used to be we had some military leadership, and I think back of Ike Skelton and Bob Dole, two opposing parties, but I got them to come together on a situation. This was 20 days after Noriega was captured in Panama, and one of the guys in Panama called into my show, and I said, "What's the one thing you miss about home the most?" He said, "White Castle hamburgers." And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Man, I would love to have a White Castle hamburger." So I call Ike Skelton. Well, I call White Castle, and then I called Ike Skelton and Bob Dole. They got together in the matter of, I don't know, 2 weeks. We were on a C-130 with 10,000 frozen White Castle hamburgers, delivered them to Panama.
That's awesome, man.
And everybody went,
Oh, yeah. You would have been heroes.
Oh, yeah, went crazy. But, that just shows you right there. Here's two military guys, opposing parties, came together and made something great happen. And that used to happen all the time.
Yeah, it's just there's not a feeling of service anymore. And it's all about, they're all pick me, type guys who just want attention and don't care. I mean, you saw that when they stalled out the PACT Act.
Yeah,
the PACT Act was important to me.
Absolutely.
I was exposed to burn pits in Iraq along with people that I was there with, and there were a lot of carcinogens there, and people are suffering from that. And if the listeners don't know, the PACT Act gave VA benefits to people who were exposed to burn pits.
Right.
And,
finally.
Finally. And these guys, including Josh Hawley, played politics with that and stalled it, for their own personal interests. And it's just
well, you got the wrong person in office when you travel outside of Kansas City, and people go, "Oh man, you guys got Hawley." I mean, being known for the wrong reasons, and that's not what you want. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that could help Missouri. I think there are a lot of things that you bring to the table in terms of just common sense stuff. And I found just doing this show, just logistically and the resourcefulness of somebody that served in the military, when they take those values and traits and apply them to something else. But now, what made you crazy enough to run for office? I mean, seriously, that had to be. Now you've got how many kids?
I have three.
Three kids and a wife who sings.
That's right. Yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah, Marilyn's a singer. She's talented.
Well, now how was that discussion?
She got through college singing.
That's pretty cool.
Good, yeah.
But now, how was that discussion to say, okay, here's what I'm thinking of doing?
Well, the discussion was easier probably than actually living through it.
Yeah.
And so
right.
She will be very happy, I think, in November when
when everything's over.
When we can breathe for a second again, because
Yeah.
it really is nonstop all day, every day. But when it comes down to it, she knows what's happening in Missouri neighborhoods that are falling apart. And again, what I want to do, it's not even partisan, right? I want to bring money back home, and I want to make it so that we can make our own decisions. And I'll work with any president to do that. I'll work with any member of Congress to do that. I want to bring the money back, and I want to give us the freedom to make our own choices. That's it. That's the American way right there.
What's your favorite barbecue in town?
Oh, I'm going Gates, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Now, I appreciate that answer Because I think most people campaigning for anything will go, they're all pretty good.
Oh, yeah, did I just offend a lot of people out there? Oops.
Yeah, no.
But I like Gates.
Gates is great. Gates is fantastic. Well, I mean, you can't go wrong with any barbecue in Kansas
No,
City.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, you're saving me here.
Yeah. Now, do you smoke your own meat?
I don't smoke my own meat. No,
Okay.
no. I'm
Andy, who owns the studio, smokes his own meat.
Impressive.
He's a
man.
genius.
Andy, I have to swing by that house.
I know.
See, I just
you can
cheat.
smell it.
I just cheat, and I rely on the local, establishments to smoke the meat for
He
me.
lives
I
in Blue
just show up,
Springs. You
man.
can smell it from Independence. I mean,
Yeah, probably so.
oh man, this is so cool. So tell me where you are in terms of endorsements right now, because you mentioned the firefighters. It seems like a lot of people are turning your way. And do I have this right? This is just my sense of things from paying attention and kind of seeing what's going on. You had an uphill climb. I mean, you're a Democrat in Missouri, number one. You didn't have a lot of name recognition, but that seems to have snowballed, man. I mean, am I seeing that right?
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about where we're at in the movement that we've built. And one of the challenges in doing this campaign, and really, in my opinion, one of the saddest things about or American politics, and the reason that we don't have normal people representing us, and we got who we've got, self-interested people, is because it's really hard for a guy like me to run for office. I mean, I got no family money, right at all. Like, my mom got cancer a few years ago and had to move in with me because she's working an hourly job and she can't afford her lifestyle when she got cancer. And it's just like that's the type of family we are. I spent my life in service in the Marine Corps, so I don't have all these connections. And one of the things that I wanted to do in this campaign was I take no money from corporate PACs, no money from federal lobbyists, no money from big pharma executives. Like, we have a pretty restrictive list. And the most restrictive in the country, as far as I know. And the reason for that is I'm tired of seeing people sell out. And I just, the only people I ever want to owe are everyday folks like those who took care of me in my old neighborhood back home.
Right.
And a lot of people said that I was the crazy one for trying to do a campaign that way. Like, they're like, well, it's impossible to run a modern campaign that way. And, in my opinion, it's impossible to represent the people you're supposed to represent if you do run a campaign that way. So we did it our way. And we have. We gave people something to believe in. We got the earliest ever AFL-CIO endorsement in a Missouri Senate race for a challenger. We got the firefighters on board. And for anyone who doesn't know, the firefighters endorsed our current Republican Senator Eric Schmidt, the previous Republican Senator Roy Blunt, the governor who's a Republican too. So this is a group that is leaning Republican, and they still supported me based on my record of service and the fact that Josh Hawley hasn't served anyone other than himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the endorsements are fantastic, but I think you seem to be so authentic, and that's what I like about you. And I can't imagine when you're out. I mean, because you got to, and I'm sure you understand this better than anybody, but when the guy you're running against is nuts, the people that support him are nuts. So have you had anybody? I mean, do people yell at you? I mean, what,
No, they really haven't. Like, Missourians are pretty decent. I would say they're
Give me a list of the decent Missourians.
Well, that list is so long. There's 6 million people here, Randy. We're going to be here for years. I don't have time for that. But I would just say the ones who are like creeps and weirdos are the ones who hide behind their keyboards. They're not coming out to meet people. And so
okay, that's fair.
I get weird mail. I get, lots of internet, keyboard warriors saying stuff, things like that. Most of whom aren't even in Missouri. Like some of the mail I get, you see the postmarks, you're like, these guys aren't in Missouri, right? They're just, I don't know, international haters. I don't know. But
well, it's time for me to hate somebody.
I really don't get what goes on out there. But no, people have been fine. The other thing, is as a Marine, people respect that, and they should. I mean, Marines deserve respect. Marines have done incredible things for this country.
Absolutely.
And so I am lucky enough that just to be associated with the Marine Corps in some way, and obviously not endorsed by the Marine Corps. They don't do that, so nobody get confused.
Right.
But just just having served, I think helps a lot with getting to introduce myself to people. And once I get to introduce myself, I think it goes well.
Yeah, I think it is too, and especially the camaraderie that veterans have for one another. It's I did not serve, and I've been doing this show for a dozen years, so I kind of consider that my honor to do that and my service. But anytime you see a group of veterans, it's crazy. I mean, they may have never met each other, never known each other, but man, it's just like old home week all the time.
We got a common bond, man.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
That's so cool.
And we need that bond in Congress
Yes.
serving America right now.
Oh, man. Can you imagine that?
I think it'll go a long way.
Yeah. Well, man, thank you for taking the time. It's been a pleasure to meet you. Great to have you here. And we are pretty much kingmakers on this show. I mean, we got Mark Alford elected.
All right. Well, then it's happening.
So,
yeah,
you know,
everything's
blame
settled.
us for that. He went from anchorman to congressman.
All right.
Great to meet you.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks. That was so good. So good. We'll be right back here on the National Defense.